There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer meditation. Please be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 32, Telecommunications and Postal Services, including vote number 3, Communications Appropriation Bill.
Okay. Oh. I now invite the Honourable Minister of Communications.
Honourable House Chairperson, Ministers Mboweni, Zozo and Zemande, Deputy Ministers led by Deputy Minister Pinky Kakana, Chairperson and Honourable Members of the Portfolio Committee, the Presidential Commissioners on the 4th Industrial Revolution in South Africa, Directors General, Chairpersons and CEOs of the state-owned entities, captains of the industry, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We dip our banners and join South Africa in mourning the tragical loss of Mr. Mandla Maseko, the aspirational astronaut who died in a bike accident over the past weekend. His untimely death comes as the continent prepares to laud him as the first Black African to travel to space. We also learned with sadness about the passing of veteran actress Umama Nomhle Nkonyeni earlier this morning. A recipient of the Order of Ikamanga in silver, Mama Nomhle boasted a career that spanned 50 years and starred in various television, film, and stage productions such as Igazi, Gazlam, Red Last, and Deiswefia Fan Popi Nongena. May their revolutionary souls rest in peace. Distinguished guests, delivering the inaugural State of the Nation address at the 6th administration, His Excellency President Ramaphosa emphasized the resolution of our developmental challenges, namely the triple evils of unemployment, poverty, and inequality, that they largely depend on growing our economy. We must add that this economic growth that we desire must be inclusive to gain traction given the historic exclusion of the Black majority. The importance of inclusive growth is becoming more pronounced given the reality that the key sections of our society, such as the youth and rural communities, are bearing the most brunt of sluggish economy. Within the construct of inclusive economic participation, government, labor, and private sector must work together through a social compact that recognizes the need to be single-minded in accelerating economic growth. Contributions must come from all industries, and our efforts must seamlessly be felt within and outside the borders of our country. In this respect, our response to the 4th Industrial Revolution presents us with a unique opportunity to harness our individual and collective talents, energies, and strengths to decisively address the economic and social challenges that we currently face. It presents an opportunity for all in society to participate in the digital economy, whether it be for social welfare or business interests, as creators or consumers of goods and services, and whether trading locally, regionally, or internationally. Irrespective, the 4th Industrial Revolution represents an opportunity for inclusive contributions to the national effort of turning around our economy and society for the benefit of all. At its core, it represents the extent to which the digital economy becoming a key ingredient to the production processes in various sectors such as education, health, agriculture, manufacturing, financial services, or infrastructure development. Further, it represents the extent to which societies can overcome their traditional challenges and people can lead dignified lives, be it through better guarantees of safety and security, easier access to effective healthcare, broader access to education, better social mobility through gainful employment, or more comprehensive and responsive social protection systems. Public services are also not immune from this development, as governments and cities recognize the need to invest in smart digital services to better understand societal needs and optimally design legislative, policy, and regulatory responses to those needs. Recent studies by Accenture and the World Economic Forum estimate that the aggregate value that can be derived by our country from the digital transformation of our society and the economy is about 5 trillion rands. More specifically, this economic value addition will result in roughly 4 million jobs. Whilst we acknowledge that some jobs will become obsolete, we cannot afford to bury our heads in the sand and ignore this critical phenomenon. The opportunities it presents and the necessary steps that we must take as a nation to minimize risks and maximize benefits. As a government, we are committed to transforming the telecommunications and digital industries market structure. Key to such an objective is the requirement to remove barriers to entry for new market players, noting that the mobile industry is highly concentrated. We must therefore be forthright in investing in digital skilling and reskilling of our people as an imperative for inclusion in the digital economy. House Chairperson, in June, myself and Minister Ibrahim Patel had the privilege of participating in the G20 summit that was held in Osaka, Japan. This summit brought together for the first time trade and digital economy ministers from various selected countries to present opportunities and deepen understanding of the interface between trade and the digital economy. As respective G20 ministers, we acknowledge the fact that digitization presents both benefits and challenges to the society. We also agreed that this phenomenon of digitization presents us with a rare opportunity to drive inclusive and sustainable growth amongst our people. This has reaffirmed our resolve as the South African government to locate the digital innovation at the core of our economic growth. In our quest to digitally transform the nation, we also acknowledge the fact that the vast majority of our people still lack access to digital infrastructure, which is the bedrock for the digital economy. In this respect, the fourth industrial revolution must therefore be viewed as providing impetus to the objectives of the National Development Plan. Our challenge, therefore, is defining the strategic areas of investment in the fourth industrial revolution that will position South Africa as the leader in this revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, it is against this background that in March 2019, President Ramaphosa established the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, comprising of eminent persons drawn from a cross-section of industries, academia, labor, and civil society. The commission, as chaired by President Ramaphosa and his deputy, Professor Chilitsi Marwala, has been inducted and is already hard at work, focusing on the following 6 delivery areas. The first one, policy and legislation, human capital and the future of work, research, technology and innovation, infrastructure and resources, industrialization and commercialization, and of course, economic and social impact. To ensure that the work of the Commission is realized into government priorities, the President has appointed the Interministerial Committee on 4AR, which comprises of the following ministers. The Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, who's chairing the IMC, Basic Education, Employment and Labor, Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Trade and Industry, or Trade, Industry and Competition, Mineral Resources and Energy, and Small Business Development. Within the next few months, the Commission will engage with key stakeholders and the public, working towards the development of South Africa's blueprint on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Honorable members, on the 5th of July, we hosted the Digital Economic Summit in Midrand as the first step towards bringing all economic and social players to the table on the collective effort of understanding the drivers of unlocking the value of the Fourth Industrial Revolution within the economy and society, and with a focus on the specific drivers of job creation in this new world. The outcome of the Digital Economy Summit will serve as an input into the work of the Presidential Commission. Further, to showcase technological innovation, we enacted, through a collaboration with Nokia and Vodacom, a replication of the summit in Rustenburg using a holographic projection. This was the first time that a head of state was broadcast live utilizing 3D holographic technology. This move signaled our readiness to cement South Africa's position as a leader in the fourth industrial revolution. As we deal with policy for the digital economy, the Electronic Communications Act has played its role in transforming the industry to its current position. However, overhauled instruments need to take into account the plurality of players across all aspects of the value chain, as well as new emerging markets. As indicated, we need to immediately overhaul our policies in order for them to respond to a changing industry that is increasingly dominated by data and an ecosystem of digital platforms. On reconfiguration of the portfolio, the merger of Ministries of Communications and Technologies and Postal Services into a single Ministry of Communications and Digital Technologies is designed to ensure better alignment and coordination on matters that are critical to the digital economy and the fourth industrial revolution. We have, together with the DM since our appointment, been seized with the task of creating a new department that places at its center the digital transformation of government and support for digital economy and society. We are currently designing an optimal structural and institutional framework that will speak to our new mandate. This entails defining the focus areas and operating model of the new department and aligning these with the outcomes of the Presidential Commission in order to ensure that the new department is indeed the champion leading on matters related to the fourth industrial revolution. The design and alignment of work will inform and guide how our continuing operations in relation to some of the key policy promises made under the previous department. To this end, we are also engaging our stakeholders, departmental employees, and unions about the new mandate. All these processes will culminate in the finalization of the organizational structure for the new department and strategic plan. The annual performance plan will therefore need to be reviewed and amended in line with the new mandate and structure that will feed into a single budget for the new department. The state-owned entities under the department are also being reconfigured to make sure that they're in line with the new mandate. Through the reconfiguration of some of our state-owned entities, we will establish a new infrastructure company that will be responsible for the rollout of infrastructure and connectivity. As part of the creation of this company, we will ensure that all state infrastructure initiatives are harmonized and coordinated. We will further reconfigure our entities to create a streamlined regulator that will respond to the emerging needs of the digital society. As we ready South Africa to take its leading position in the fourth industrial revolution, we will also position NEMISA to be a digital skills institute that will train government employees and members of the public. As part of ensuring development of the sector, we will also present to Parliament the Digital Development Fund Bill to establish the fund to support innovation. In order to drive digital transformation in government, there is a need to establish the state IT company. This will entail the repurposing of the current State Information Technology Agency to drive innovation, transformation, localization, cybersecurity, e-government, and IT service management. We will further repurpose the South African Post Office to take advantage of the thriving e-commerce and financial services environment, with the latter through the Post Bank. And all of this, honorable members, are done in this financial year, 2019-2020. Finally, government is actively looking at strengthening the South African Broadcasting Corporation. As we reported in the Portfolio Committee last week, we continue to engage with National Treasury on a lasting financial solution for the public broadcaster. To this end, working with the National Treasury, we will, in the next 10 days, provide a portion of the interim relief and the remaining balance within the next 45 days. However, this is subject to the SABC meeting all the set conditions and requirements. In this regard, we will work with the Minister of Finance towards an institutional mechanism to support the turnaround effort, and this includes the appointment of the CRO. On digital transformation of government, honorable members, the digitization of government services is an important pillar of digital transformation, and therefore the department will lead the process of fast-tracking the digital transformation of government services with a particular focus on frontline services. In responding to the President's call for the district service delivery model, we will be working with all government departments and stakeholders to support cities in digitizing their services. Government will, within 90 days, identify priority districts for this purpose. To date, the department has facilitated broadband connectivity to 570 facilities. This includes schools and health facilities. In addition to what the industry is doing, the department continues to engage all. For example, Telkom has about 160,000 kilometers of fiber, which will be critical as we move forward towards the fourth industrial revolution. Broadband Infraco has rolled out 15,000 of fiber and 147 points of presence throughout the country. Centec has an extensive wireless network with more than 300 sites to deliver digital and broadband services. Going forward, the department will focus on rolling out broadband services to additional 400 sites, majority of which once more will be schools and health facilities. Through ICASA, we will also review the current universal service obligations to ensure alignment with the SA Connect standards. During the medium term, we will review the download speeds to be in line with the international best practices. This will form part of the work we are currently doing with the Development Bank of South Africa, which will be concluded by the end of the financial year. Furthermore, the feasibility study for the second phase of the rollout will be coordinated, and the study will investigate cost-effective and efficient ways, inclusive of public-private partnership models of rolling out services, as well as funding broadband on a much larger scale. On high-demand spectrum licensing. On the licensing of unassigned high-demand spectrum, we will, within the next 7 working days, issue the final policy and policy directions to ICAS. As the international ICT community prepares for the World Radio Conference that will be held in Egypt in October 2019, plans are afoot for South Africa's participation in the discussions in SADC, Africa, and the international fora to ensure that this time we're not left behind and do not delay our people and country the meaningful role they can play, as 5G is not only telecommunications based, but cuts across all sectors. We've got to treat it the way we deal with the land. Accelerating the broadcasting digital migration program. Within 90 days, the department will present the reviewed broadcasting digital migration delivery model in order to enable the swift release of the high-demand spectrum needed for the rollout of broadband and effective DTT migration. We have to build a capable army if we are to ensure that our people get to benefit on the spoils that are presented by the fourth industrial revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, the late former President Nelson Mandela once said, and I quote, "If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart," close quote. Indeed, the language that we use influences the way that we think and act. Therefore, making content readily available in multiple languages enables a connected society. As such, and as part of the Internet for All initiative, we have established a working group on content which has commenced with translating Wikipedia content into the 10 official languages of South Africa, save for English. To this end, both isiXhosa and Siswati translations have been completed, and learners from schools in the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga have already started with the project. Of course, all Xhosas and Swati understanding people can have access irrespective of the geographical spread. You will recall that in my 2018 budget vote speech, I made a bold statement to train 1 million young people on data science and related skills to ensure that they are equipped to take advantage of new digital technologies, unlock future jobs, and drive competitiveness. To this end, honorable members, the National Digital Skills Strategy has been submitted to Cabinet for approval, and we have, through our partnership with portfolio entities and stakeholders such as MICT CETA, Telkom, Cisco, Vodacom, MTN, Google, and Microsoft, amongst others, trained more than 20,000 young people in data science and the skills, namely cloud computing, digital content production, 3D printing, drone piloting, cybersecurity, and software development. Further, Accenture is investing in future skills development with a special focus on the youth and contributing to the township economy. This is exemplified by Accenture Java Academy in partnership with Codex and the long-standing Proven Skills to Succeed program. We invite partners to join us in this digital skills revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, cumulatively, portfolio entities and private sector companies spend approximately 20 million rands per year on bursaries for tertiary students studying in the STEM fields. The sector also utilizes about 300 interns annually, most of whom are then absorbed into their respective companies. We don't make them
Honourable
take
Minister,
photocopies.
your time is now expired.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present the budget allocation for the department, which is 1,576,000, and for the Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services, 1,684,574
Honourable Minister, your
million.
time has expired.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Papu.
House Chairperson, Minister and Deputy Minister of Communication and Digital Technologies, fellow portfolio committee members, fellow members of Parliament, invited guests from the ICT sector, ministers who are attending the session, fellow South Africans. We're having this budget vote debate one day after the birthday of a veteran, stalwart, and an intellectual giant of the South African international struggle for social and economic justice, Tata Govan Archibald Mvuyelwa Mbeki. It is also a month in which our leader, Mama, the late Francis Tambo, was born in 1929. We're also having this debate during the national and international July month dedicated to the volunteer-in-chief of the Defiance Campaign, founding father of the democratic South Africa, and founding commander-in-chief of our armed forces, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. The budget vote happened within a context of the ANC commitment to build a national democratic society as reflected in the ANC ideological document, the strategy and tactics document that's adopted by the 54th National Conference held in December 2017, which states, and I quote, "A national democratic society should be founded on a thriving economy and structure of which should reflect the national endowments of the country and the creativity that the skilled population can offer. It should be an economy in which cutting-edge technology, labor-absorbing industrial development, a thriving small business and cooperative sector, utilization of information and communication technologies, and efficient forms of production and management all combined to ensure national prosperity," close quote. The debate is also informed by the ANC policy positions reflected by the 54th National Conference resolutions on communications and the battle of ideas, and the 2019-2014 ANC election manifesto under the section on transforming the economy to serve the people, which says, open code. The country and the world are at a critical point in the digital revolution. We must craft our digital future and devise a national program for innovation that will unleash the talents and creativity of South Africans. Our country must become the center of digital transformation in Africa. Its benefits must be spread across the economy and society rather than reinforcing existing inequality, close quote. The budget vote debate is also informed by the decision taken by the ANC government in 2018 to reconfigure the Department of Communications and the Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services, with the 13 entities, namely the South African Post Office, USASA, Dotzatna, Broadband Infraco, Centec, National Electronic and Media Institute of South Africa, State Information Technology Agency, SABC, ICASA, Film and Publications Board, Government Communication Information Services, Media Diversity and Development Agency, and Brand South Africa, which reported to the two departments. That is 2018. A further decision was announced by President Ramaphosa in his June 29 State of the Nation address to rename the department as the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, with a deadline of the end of March 2020 to have completed the integration and reconfiguration of the two departments. Government Communication Information Services, MDDA, and Brand South Africa were transferred to the ministry in the presidency to ensure effective coordination. As reflected by the observations and recommendations of the Portfolio Committee in the Portfolio Committee report, and for the ATC, the reports were 2 reports because the process of reconfiguration have not yet been completed, but the debate, it was decided to have 1 debate. The Portfolio Committee will play an oversight role on the reconfiguration process to ensure it happens in a manner which takes into consideration all the laws governing the sector, the country, existing skills and new skills which must be created for the country to ensure effective participation as a country in the 4th Industrial Revolution. And I see the Minister and Deputy Minister are already, even in the dress code, they are already in that revolution. The Portfolio Committee report notes a number of successes and challenges which face the department and entities reporting to it, and makes recommendations on them. Some of the issues noted by the Portfolio Committee are as follows. The department plan on the digitization of government information, that government employees will be provided with digital skills, that the Banks Act was amended and that such amendment will enable the Ministry of Communication to begin the process of amending the Post Bank Act, that the DGs of Treasury and Communications were going to meet last week Thursday, when we noted 4th July 2019, for further discussions about the SABC financial challenges. The Minister has now alluded to ongoing discussions. Even on Monday, there were engagements this week on the SABC. Government commitment in assisting the SABC to deal with these financial challenges, that the department will be tabling, but obviously the issue of the strategic plan, which can deal with the medium, short, and long-term sustainability of the SABC being sorted out. That the department will be tabling the Broadcasting Amendment Bill in 2019-20 financial year, which will seek to assist, among others, the SABC as well as respond to the dynamics of the technology-driven sector. That the department will soon be issuing a spectrum policy directive. The minister had enabled work streams to ensure a smooth reconfiguration. A moratorium is in place to match possible duplicate positions, as well as a skills audit instituted to evaluate skills resources available to the department. The committee also noted with concern the serious financial challenges facing the SABC. The Portfolio Committee agreed, when we adopted the report, that the minister will update it on progress in relation to the ongoing engagement between the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, the SABC, and National Treasury on the challenges facing the SABC. Some of the recommendations made by the Portfolio Committee is for the minister to ensure the department implements a coordinated strategy with clear internal processes on how the two departments will merge in respect of the reconfiguration, and report to the committee when requested to about the program of action, especially relating to staff. Ensure that during the reconfiguration, the role of its entities need to be clearly defined to avoid further duplication. Ensure that in the creation of highly industrialized economy, favorable conditions are created to ensure SMMEs and cooperative sector survives and thrives. Ensure that the department expedites spectrum policy so as to ensure that spectrum is released without further delay. Adequately capacitate ICASA to ensure the licensing of spectrum is equitably favorable to all. Ensure that strategies are in place to facilitate further reduction of data costs and the cost to communicate in general, and ensure that the sector remains competitive. Ensure that its focus to digitize government structures does not result in unintended job losses. That a thorough policy review is conducted for the digital migration process. Promote regulation in order to stimulate growth and sustainability of SMMEs. Profile DDT user experience and share that with the committee. Share with the committee more information relating to the study measuring the gap in ICT skills in South Africa, and that government should take advantage of the world stage at the World Radio Conference 19. In our country, we already have the South African Affiliate Center for the World Economic Forum for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, based at CSIR in Tshwane, which was launched in April 2019. On behalf of the legislative sector, National Parliament convened a seminar and an exhibition on the Fourth Industrial Revolution this year. Various other discussions and practical initiatives are taking place as part of contributions towards the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Government and all sectors of society must diligently consolidate and coordinate all these initiatives related to the Fourth Industrial Revolution to ensure maximum benefit for the economy of the country, to assist us with innovation and the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. For maximum impact, we cannot afford the old, sterile silo mentality. We expect the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which held its inaugural meeting on Friday, 5th July 2019, through its 6 work streams, to coordinate and galvanize all efforts towards developing a national strategy for the country by the end of March 2020. Instead of sloganeering and fear-mongering, we as lawmakers have to embrace the Fourth Industrial Revolution and immerse ourselves in the theoretical, policy, and practical aspects of it. There are a number of scholars and practitioners in this area who work with us, who have done research and can assist us to be active industrial revolutionaries to completely change the socio-economic phase of our country. As elected public representatives, we have a responsibility to ensure that the Fourth Industrial Revolution practically benefit the people of South Africa, majority of whom are black, women, and the working class. We will do our oversight in a robust manner, in a strong manner, but majority of committee members agree that that oversight should be done not in a rude and abrasive manner. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is the Honorable Van Dam.
Honorable Chairperson, on the Sona red carpet, Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrams said her address was to remind South Africa that Stella is a princess. It was bizarre that a minister, a public representative, would see it fit to remind South Africa that she is a princess and not a humble servant of the people, as she was elected to be. President Stella's Stop my time, please, Chair. Please stop my time. Please stop my time.
Order, honorable members. Order,
Stop
honorable
my
members.
time,
Don't
please.
drown the speaker with your
She
interjections.
said she was a princess in Kaleland.
Order, honorable members.
Point of order, Chair.
Honorable members.
Point of order, Chair.
Honorable members. I'll recognize you now, Deputy Minister.
What show you, Nanje?
Honorable member at the podium. If you want the protection of the chair, then you must also not try to elicit a response. to be drowned while you're delivering your speech. Why are you rising, Honorable Deputy Minister?
Because the honorable member is misrepresenting the honorable minister.
That is not the point of order.
The honorable minister is a princess.
That's not.
She is a princess.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Please take your seat. Thank you for the information. Continue, Honorable Member.
Hey, she said so herself. Princess Stella's attitude was unfortunately not limited to the red carpet. It became patently clear that the minister thought herself to be a fairy tale princess to whom all must bow. Her approach and treatment of the SABC is indeed of one who considers themselves above the law that applies to us common folk. Last week, the minister claimed that the judgment of the High Court in the case SOS Coalition versus the Minister of Communications and others, and by implication, the Broadcasting Act did not necessarily apply to her in all cases as the Minister of Communications. In reference to the effects of the Broadcasting Act and its implication of the minister's relationship with the SABC board, in the judgment, Matojane J held, and listen carefully here, because the SABC is a medium,
Order, honorable members.
The SABC is a medium that should allow the free flow of ideas. It is necessary that are necessary for democracy to function. The state must ensure that it has structural and operational independence. The judgment further read, the minister, as a sole shareholder and not a member of the board, does not have the right to act on behalf of the SABC or manage its business or affairs. The ultimate decision-making power is that of the board and not the minister, a sole shareholder. Here's one. This means, Chairperson, that the minister has a constitutional duty to work with the SABC without unduly interfering in its operational decisions taken by the board. And before you deny it, this is not my own interpretation of the judgment in the Broadcasting Act, but that of a constitutional law professor. Now, Minister, through you, Chair, if you consider yourself above the law, if you consider yourself above the courts, hi, uzoshelela gabi. The editorial of the City Press this Sunday, if your behavior thus far is anything to go by, is correct. Hlaudi Motsoeneng took the SABC to the edge of the cliff, and you appear to be determined to push it over. Minister, please be sure to protect. Minister,
Order, honorable
please.
members. Order.
I don't know why they get so excited when I
No,
speak.
honorable member. Honorable
My
member.
time, please, my time.
No, one of your members are now taking a point of order, so he's taking up your time. Have a seat. Honorable Van Dam, just have a seat, please. Yes, honorable member.
Chairperson, we all enjoy a little bit of heckling and joshing, but it is starting to drown out the speaker. I would ask for your protection for this.
Yes.
Please, Chair.
No, honorable members. Honorable members, I have requested you, let's not drown out the speaker. Continue, honorable member.
Minister, please ensure that the important role that the SABC plays in our democracy is protected, supported, and respected. This is a heartfelt plea I make on behalf of those people of our country who do not have money for Netflix, Showmax, or DSTV, and in some cases do not own TVs and only have radios. You know that the majority of South Africans rely on the SABC's radio and TV stations. Please ensure that they can continue to be provided with information, education, and entertainment by the public broadcaster. Day zero must never come, for it will be them who will suffer. You may live a life of luxury, they do not. This is also a heartfelt plea I make on behalf of the thousands of SABC staff who lived through the Hlaudi Motsoeneng reign of terror and now live in a time of uncertainty with only 3 months of salaries left in the SABC's coffers. We applaud the SABC staff who made sure that probably for the first time in democratic South Africa, coverage of the election was fair across all parties. That's why Niphlung. Is this why the minister is upset? Because the SABC is no longer under the ANC's control. Is the minister upset because the SABC bravely reported her attempts to block the SABC covering the protest at a manifesto launch? If you are upset, build a bridge and get over it. Stop putting you and your party's ego above that of the people of South Africa. Enough. You have National Treasury's 11 preconditions. Work on building an amicable relationship with the SABC so that the people of our country do not have to suffer because of the bad blood you have with the SABC and your bad mouthing. To the SABC, I say, continue your good work thus far, but please release the following reports that are long outstanding. The revised editorial policy, the report on political interference at the SABC, and the results of the staff and salaries audit that you conducted. This is work that does not require funding from National Treasury, and we trust that these reports will be released soon for public scrutiny. Chairperson, I must state that I am incredibly excited about the inclusion of digital technologies as part of the department's mandate. I trust that adequate funding will be allocated to this important function. I will offer the minister suggestions from the DA, which I hope she will consider in good faith. This is but one idea, and I look forward to sharing many with her. Last month, the UK government announced new measures to ensure that the regulatory system can effectively support technology innovation. A council will be formed to advise government of regulations that need to adapt and respond to changes in technology. I believe that the same is needed in South Africa. Companies in that sector should not be hamstrung by onerous red tape. Please make sure that this sector is provided with enough support so that they can create jobs. To my fellow committee members, I have already suggested that as a Communications and Digital Technologies Department committee, we must lead by example in creating a digitized parliament. Yeah, Waterfront is where you buy all your expensive outfits with money you got from the Guptas. To my...
Order, honorable members.
And a point of order.
Thank you. We must drive a digitized parliament.
Order,
we would also like
Honorable
to see
member, can you take your seat? There is a point of order. Honorable member, what is your point of order?
The point of order is that the member on the podium says the minister is buying expensive clothes with money from Guptas. That is not correct and it's unsubstantiated. It's allegations that she's making. She must withdraw.
Honorable members, order. Unfortunately, there was a lot of noise. I didn't hear that. Honorable Van Dam, can you confirm that you said that?
I said all of them.
All of them what?
No,
Especially the one in the Burberry.
No.
Please, my time. Especially the one in the Burberry
Honorable
scarf.
Van Dam. Honorable Van Dam.
Chairperson.
Honorable Van Dam.
Chairperson, excuse me, I had the floor before the Deputy Minister.
I was still speaking.
Thank you.
Can all of you take your seats? Honorable Van Dam, I want now to make a ruling. If we have said that, can you please withdraw that? Because that is unparliamentary.
I withdraw because I don't know where they all shop. We would like to see a far more robust parliament and committee in holding companies in the private sector accountable. The DA took on Bell Pottinger and won. There is no reason why Parliament couldn't have done so. Let us not only protect our people from the misdeeds of government, but also the private sector. As my final word to the Minister, Chairperson, it is still early in your tenure. She has the time to right wrongs and be the Minister of Communications that South Africa deserves. If not, Sufakpelepel. Chairperson, I have just been informed of the passing of legendary Springbok wing James Small. On behalf of the DA, I would like to send our deepest condolences to his friends, family, and the global rugby fraternity. We will forever remember your contribution to South Africa's victory in the 1995 World Cup a victory that unites South Africans at a fragile time in our country's history. Rest in peace. Rus in vrede, James.
The next speaker is Honorable L.G. Mukwena.
Thank you, Chair. Let me add the condolences of the EFF to the passing of Nomhle Nkonyeni. She has led an entire generation of artists, and we send our condolences and respect. Ulalega kuhle, Sis Nhlehle Nkonyeni. Minister, let me start by saying that we welcome the decision by the ANC finally to amalgamate the two departments of communications and telecommunications. It's an overdue decision, and we don't understand why they were separated in the first place. Actually, we do know, but we welcome the decision. We think that immediately after announcing the amalgamation, that the president should have also introduced the operation of the Post Bank as a full bank, because it is an extremely important pillar of the economic emancipation of our people. It's important that the Post Bank must take advantage of the Financial Matters Amendment Act and start operating as a fully licensed bank now that the Banks Act has been amended to allow SOEs to carry and operate under the banking license. The EFF is proud to have initiated this process through its private members bill of the 15th of May. So back in 2017, the Post Bank applied for the license to operate as a bank. When it did so, it had a business plan. It should have had a business plan. That business plan would have outlined shareholders, operations, strategy, and all of that. Your department comes to the committee last week and says that now that the legislative environment allows for the bank to operate, they are now speaking to shareholders and they are understanding the modus operandi. So it means that they don't have a plan as yet. So since 2017, up until the announcement of the amendment on the 23rd of May this year, there was no plan. And this is what characterizes the Department of Communications generally. So we have a few suggestions, ma'am. This is how you do it. Because you have the PIC, you have the IDC, you have the NEF, you have SASA, you have government departments, you have the ANC account. Even the EFF will throw their money into that account of the Post Bank. You then have a strong leverage, ma'am.
Order, honorable members.
You then have a strong leverage, ma'am. Use that leverage to go to the poorest of the poor, to the marginalized. Go to Eklocha, where the established banking system is exploiting our people. Go to Ngamakwe, go to Kumbu, rural areas of KZN, Mpumalanga, Limpopo. Go there and go service our people there and go reduce charges and reduce tariffs. That is the mandate that the Post Bank should. Forget what Minister Twele was saying about a development bank and all of that. This must be a mainstream bank that services the marginalized and the poorest of the poor. This could be one of the strongest pillars, ma'am, of the emancipation of the economic emancipation of our people. So we implore that you take that very seriously. Now, the SABC, you must talk to that minister of yours. He's not here. You must tell the Minister of Finance, but also if he's not going to finance that SABC. It's extremely important that he finances it. Now, we know that the reason why he's using the turnaround strategy as a scapegoat, as a reason not to finance the SABC, is because we understand his attitude towards SOEs. But the SABC is an extremely important pillar of our democracy, so it has to be financed. even before those timelines that you were mentioning, and you put a proviso that no, if they meet certain. Ma'am, can I be?
Honorable
you
members,
give-
order. Can you allow him to speak, please?
You give a proviso that if they meet certain functions, then they'll be financed. The SABC must be financed, man. It's absolutely important. Now, the SABC
Order,
has
honorable members, can we allow the speaker to speak, please?
so the SABC has had more turnaround strategies than any SOEs.
Honorable member, can you take a seat? There is a
Thank you, ma'am.
hand. What is your point of order, honorable member?
Chair, just on a point of order, this sounds like a conversation between the minister and the speaker. It's meant to go through the chair, please.
Honorable member, that is not a point of order. Honorable member, can you proceed? Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. So the SABC has had more turnaround strategies than any other SOE. And those turnaround strategies have never worked. The SABC keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. You know why? It's because the problem is not the turnaround strategy. The problem is people.
Order, honorable members.
The problem
Order,
is
honorable members who want to listen to the speaker. Can you give him chance, please?
the problem is not your turnaround strategies. It's people, it's implementation, and it's policy, right? So this is how you fix the SABC. The SABC needs to be depoliticized. We're hearing all kinds of stories.
Honorable
that have
member, can you speak through the chair? Please, honorable member.
So,
Order,
Chair,
order,
I
order,
don't
Chair.
understand. Does it mean I must look at you? Or does-
No.
Order, Chair.
Honorable member,
Order, Chairperson.
I'm trying to protect you because they are disturbing you. I'm saying speak through the chair.
Order,
Please,
order-
continue.
Order, Chairperson.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Order, Chairperson. I think it's important to protect an honorable member because I think there's jealousy on the other side because it's facing this side. He's saying all the sensible things, not looking at them. I think you must protect the honorable member. Please, Chair.
Honorable member, proceed. Otherwise, you are eating your own minutes. Please.
All right, thank you very much. Through you, Chair. Minister. We must depoliticize the SABC. This is crucial because we're still hearing stories of politicization of the SABC, and it's going to destroy that institution. We must release the skills audit, and we must solidify the definition of roles so that people are running around the SABC that they don't know what they're doing. And it's important that we understand, that everybody understands what their role is. We must put in proper financial and operational systems, man. And we must not tolerate corruption. Because what has happened is that we've had the SABC inquiry, there were recommendations, and people are still running around. Some of them are even opening their own political parties with the monies of the SABC. So we must go and arrest those people. We must recoup the monies that we've lost in the SABC through corrupt operations with the Guptas, with MultiChoice. We've lost archives. We've lost a lot, and we must recoup all that money. And we must go back to the basic principles of broadcast, man. It's information and education, entertainment and fairness. Those are all embodied within the Broadcasting Act. These are some of the things that we need to look at in order for us to bring back the dignity of the SABC. Ma'am, leave the Broadcasting Act alone. Leave it alone. There is nothing wrong with the Broadcasting Act. Now, what happened in the last tenure is that your minister, when you were deputy minister, your minister went into that corner office of hers there and fiddled with the Broadcasting Act. We learned later that what she was doing is to centralize power between herself, Saudi, and other corrupt individuals. Don't do those things. The Broadcasting Act, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Let's go to the SABC itself and fix what is in there. That is where we need to start. On digital migration, ma'am, digital migration must now be the cornerstone of broadcasting in South Africa. Now, your department already told you that, I've got lots of time, thank you very much. We won numbers, we've got time now. Your department already told you that we're already paying money towards Centec and preparing Centec for the digital migration. So it's not operational, but the money is already going out. So it's wasteful expenditure by definition, so to speak. And failure to do so, ma'am, it will result in the stifling of the development of the SABC. The SABC should be giving us a whole lot more channels. It should be giving us a whole lot more services. You're stifling the development of local transmission. Now, at the moment, the process of applying for a local television station is so cumbersome that there are at least 5 provinces that don't have those things. So the digital migration would make it easier for them to open up and
Honorable member, your time is up.
We will continue to engage on these issues. There's a whole lot more that we're going to discuss.
Your time is up.
But thank you very much. But we will not be supporting your budget until you do these things. Thank you very much.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair.
Point of order, Chair.
This is very important, Chair. Honorable Chair.
He started, yes.
Honorable Chair, is Honorable Mandla Waketiwe Libutau aware that for people at home to watch Generations Delegacy at 8 o'clock, in fact to watch you on Generation Delegacy at 8 o'clock, then his budget vote to pass. I don't think he's aware. Honorable Ringo Majingo.
Honorable member.
Hello?
Honorable member, you should address the chair, not the member. So, Honorable Mkwen.
No, through you, Chair, I appreciate my fan there. But we're not there, Chief. We're in Parliament now. We're discussing
Are we going to now have
telecommunications.
across the floor?
Okay. So, yeah, I'll deal with you
Honorable
afterwards.
Mkwena, you are doing the very same
Thank you very
mistake.
much.
You must address the chair. Can you take your seat? I have made a ruling. Let us proceed with our debate. The next speaker is Honorable Majosi. She's making her maiden speech. Over to you, Mbokot.
Honorable Chairperson, this department is the custodian of information and is responsible for the national communication policy and strategy, information dissemination and publicity, and the branding of our country. It is incredibly difficult to discuss only budget matters when 91.3% or 4.6 billion of the department's total budget will be transferred to entities for the implementation of communications and broadcasting policies. It is no surprise who will receive the bulk of the billions. But the uncertainty around the sustainability of the South African Broadcasting Corporation and its current business model is what affects the work of this department most. As the sole shareholder, Minister Ndabeni Abrahams has not been doing a stellar job. Without having to debate inconsistencies and the relationship of the department with National Treasury, we must never forget that the people who will bear the brunt due to lack of financial certainty, poor management, and lack of oversight, and the blunted ineptitude are the many faces behind the public broadcaster. They need to put the food on the table. They need to ensure their kids' school fees is paid. They are able to cover their bonds or their car payments or their credits. The board's pockets are lined as they are getting paid per meeting, yet producing zero results. There is no bang for buck if this is where to be at any company, it will be addressed. If key performance areas are not to be met over this medium term, all hope would be lost. We must never forget that when right at the top, things are unraveling. The worst affected are the ones who put in the hours of work to make ends meet. The situation at the SABC right now is not something we should, as a nation, take lightly. There are many lessons which have been learned over the years, and there are many examples of state-owned entities which have become successful enterprises by opening up the private sector investment and shareholdings. Such a public and private partnership is required to move the SABC forward and out of the red. It is a shame, really, that we have found ourselves in this position. The lack of consequences for gross neglect flies in the face of the millions of South Africans who rely on the SABC for their information, their entertainment, and their upliftment. It is unacceptable, it is a waste of public funds, and it is grave shame that various ministers have failed to fix and clean up the public broadcast. Honorable Chairperson, the welcomed measure and rebranding of the department to include digital technologies is a step in the right direction, but face painting is meaningless without action. The state of the telecommunication industry in our country is a missed opportunity to unlock jobs for our people and to reach out to the millions of people who live in rural South Africa. Digital technologies and opportunities have been squandered due to the lack of policy certainty within that department, and the political will has not been there to turn around the entities of the department. Minister Ndabeni Abrahams certainly does have a challenging portfolio of entities, boards, and industries to manage. It is important that she focuses and is able to navigate the industry's sharks in prioritizing the creation of jobs and opportunities for young South Africans in the tech space. Chairperson, the IFP is extremely concerned over the possible adverse health effects associated with the rollout of 5G communications. We urge government to exercise the utmost precaution as is mandatory in terms of the international agreement to which we are party, as well as in terms of our own constitution. We must caution and conscientize this House of the many dangers which are posed by the radiation, which are scientifically proven to be harmful when exposed to humans, particularly young people, in the rollout of the 5G. In this respect, we have submitted a number of parliamentary questions to the Ministers of Health, Communications, Environment, and the GCPS cluster. We urge the Minister to
Honourable
conduct
Member, your
independent
time is
investigation into possible diverse health and the well-being effect of 5G.
Your time is up.
The IFP supports this budget. I thank you.
The next speaker on the list is Honourable Vessels.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Chairperson, communication, the human connection, is key to all forms of success. Therefore, the importance of this department should not be underestimated. According to President Ramaphosa, the merge of the Departments of Telecommunication and Postal Services and the Department of Communication will ensure better alignment and coordination of matters that are important to our economy. This can, however, only be obtained if the different components of this department functions properly, which is currently not at all the case. The instability in leadership of this department has had a detrimental impact on its entities, such as ICASA, the Film and Publication Board, the GCIS, and the ANC government's greatest embarrassment, the SABC. Minister, through you, Chairperson, you referred to the Electronic Communication Act. But since it was passed into law 17 years ago, nothing has happened. Nothing. A good piece of legislation, but nothing has happened. Nix. Chairperson, the progress on essential projects, such as the switch from analog to digital broadcasting, which has been 10 years in the making, and for which the deadline was set to be 2011, is still not completed. It is now estimated to be completed by 2020, but most probably that is also just a dream. We are lagging behind our neighbors, Namibia and Botswana, in this regard. This delay has cost the country more than 10 billion rand. The poorest of the poor are excluded from affordable digital connectivity. Why? Is it deliberate or is it just incompetence? Because currently only an elite few benefits. The economy is suffering due to the various delays to implement the Electronic Communication Act. And let's get to the SABC in particular. Hlaudi Motsoeneng was appointed by the ANC. He was appointed by your predecessor, Minister. The ANC protected him amidst his destruction of the public broadcaster, amidst his corruption when he stole and was a part of stealing 631 million rand from the Department of Human Settlements in the Free State. Houses that could have been built for the poor, he stole. But the ANC chose to protect him year after year. And then what did he do? He started his own political party. Learn from that. Chairperson, the Honourable President's pipe dream of a smart city will never be realized amidst the mismanagement and corruption which contributes to South Africa lacking behind the world in terms of digital communication. We cannot talk about the fourth industrial revolution whilst we do not even have a nearly, almost functioning post office. Not even a post office. We don't even have a functioning public broadcaster. But then we hear in every speech, fourth industrial revolution. We're far from that. Let's get what we have working. Let's implement what we have. Let's stop, Honourable Chairperson, the corruption. Let's make appointments based on merit. Learn from the Hlaudi Motsoeneng incident. Listen to the opposition parties. Listen when there is set. Listen when people within the entities tell you that there's a problem with a certain individual. Don't just ignore them. The whole SABC destruction could have been prevented or limited if the minister at that stage and the ANC listened. But they chose to protect their cadre. And now he's the ACM cadre. Stop your cadre deployment. If this is not done, Honourable Chairperson, the President's dream and actually a fairy tale of a smart city will remain a fairy tale. And the only place where the Honourable Minister will feature is as a fictional princess within that fairy tale. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Deputy Minister for Communications.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Let me recognize the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Mr. Ndabeni Abrahams, other ministers and deputy ministers here present, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Hope Papo, members of the Portfolio Committee, Directors General of respective departments, commissioners of the Presidential Commission on the 4IR, captains of the industry, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start out by apologizing to the House for the regrettable incident that took place at last week's Portfolio Committee session. This was not out of disrespect to the Portfolio Committee and all South Africans. It was the effects of taking new flu medication and bearing the consequences thereof. I conditionally apologize. With 8 days left to Mandela Day, as the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, we are guided by the words of our former President Nelson Mandela when he said, and I quote, "The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers the fear," close quote. With many challenges to face and the many unknowns that come with the advancement of technology, like Madiba said, we have to be brave and conquer those fears. As we head into the fourth industrial revolution, our drive needs to be underpinned by institutions, especially the state-owned enterprises, agencies, and regulators. Significant strides have been made to transform the SABC from being the mouthpiece of the apartheid government into a true public broadcaster. The uninterrupted coverage of the 2019 national and provincial elections enabled South Africans from all walks of life the opportunity to receive pertinent information about the elections, therefore facilitating a participatory democracy. This, once again, Chair, positions the national broadcaster as an important pillar of our democracy and is probably best summed up by the analysis of Media Monitoring Africa, an independent media monitoring group, which concluded the following, and I quote, SABC coverage of the 2019 general elections are to be strongly commended, not just because they were overwhelmingly fair, but because, firstly, there was a clear shift to offer more citizens voices. Secondly, political parties were equitably covered. Thirdly, SABC stood up for their editorial independence. Fourthly, provincial coverage was in line with general population spread. And lastly, which is fifth, to the best of our knowledge, no formal complaints about the SABC's failure to run party adverts or messages were lodged. Close quotes. This proves, Honorable Mukwena, how the SABC is
Chairperson,
depoliticized.
Honorable
Can
member.
I just ask a question? Why the ANC is not clapping about the equitable coverage? They're not
Honorable
clapping.
Van Dam,
Why is that?
Honorable Van Dam, I did not allow you to do that. Honorable Deputy Minister, can you proceed?
Thank you. The ANC is aware, so we're trying to educate you. And this happened, Chair, at a time when the SABC was faced with unprecedented financial challenges, which were mainly the result of mismanagement, corruption, and outdated funding model. Government understands these challenges and commits itself to finding a lasting solution. And of course, our minister has come up with those, which include working with the SABC and other stakeholders. In this respect, Chair, the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies has commissioned the Government Technical Advisory Center and National Treasury to assist with the development of a corporate strategy of the SABC to ensure that it is sustainable and forward-looking. Chair, it is within this context that the Minister of Finance has charged his Director General, Mr. Dondo Mukhajani, to determine how the SABC can be assisted from within Treasury's contingency reserves, as indicated in the Ministers of Finance February 2019 budget speech. We are truly indebted to the board, the management, and the staff of the SABC, who have continued to steer the ship through stormy seas which were not of their own doing. We will be working studiously and speedily with GTEC, SABC current lenders, and National Treasury, as the Minister has outlined, to ensure that the SABC gets assistance it desperately needs in the interim, whilst parliamentary processes are being finalized. The department has also identified policies that need to be amended to create an enabling environment for the turnaround and complete recovery of the SABC, taking into account the changing market and technological advances. This will entail amendments of the Broadcasting Act and the Electronic Communications Act, amongst others. We call upon all government departments, Chairperson, and state-owned entities to use the SABC as a platform to educate, inform, and entertain about your specific areas of work cutting across your various sectors such as health, sports, transport, etc. And this will enable us to position the SABC as your home within the homes of South Africans. This can and should happen if we get all government departments and its entities to understand that the SABC is a fundamental platform for public content. I have no doubt, Chairperson, that we can build a public broadcaster which makes the paying of TV licenses worthy. I expect all members to really lead by example. A good and viable broadcaster, Chair, is central to the development and growth of the audiovisual content and creative industries. The creative industry was identified by the World Economic Forum as a high priority industry, and our current discussions on the renewed industrial policy has affirmed it as one of the future economic growth sectors for South Africa. In this regard, the department will prioritize the development of an audiovisual and digital content strategy. Engagements with the creative industry are ongoing, and the department has already committed funds to support this initiative. Chair, in support of the development of more local content as required by Section 38 of the Broadcasting Act, the Ministry will appoint members of the public and industry to serve on the South African Broadcast Production Advisory Board, which will advise on strategies and plans towards the creation of a South African local content industry. This will take into account efforts towards positioning South Africa as a significant player in the global digital economy and the fourth industrial revolution. Honorable members, financial inclusion is an important pillar of any economy. Over the years, government has positioned the Post Bank to become a trusted bank for many in our country, especially those who cannot access the current banks. Currently, the Post Bank has about 5.8 million clients with 5.3 billion rand in deposits, excluding SASSA, which amounts to 7.8 million grant recipients. Our competitive edge remains rooted in decades of building trust in communities and supporting South Africans who would not normally have access to banking and giving them a form of economic emancipation. So I hear the EFF is aligning with the ANC in this regard. A significant number of South Africans started their banking with the Post Bank and still do.
Honorable Deputy Minister, there is a point of order. Honorable Mkwena, what is your point of order?
Sorry, Chair, point of correction. We're not aligning. It is part of our pillars. It is one of our main pillars to have a state-owned.
You are learning from the best. Thank
That's
you.
not a point of order. Sit down. Honorable Deputy Minister,
So
can
you are learning
proceed?
from the best. The payments of social grants through the postal network has brought convenience and even dignity to many of our people because of the extensive network of the post office across more than 1,000 outlets. As we speak, Chairperson, Post Bank is developing its strategy. So the strategy is there, which will be unveiled in the next few months. This will enable it to compete in the market while focusing on its immediate responsibilities to ensure financial inclusivity. We're getting there. Kauleza is our approach now. The Banks Act did not previously allow state entities to hold bank licenses, and this has since been amended and paved the way for the licensing of the Post Bank. During the current financial year, we will amend the Post Bank Act and to align it with the Banks Act. The department has already delinked the assets of the Post Bank from those of the South African Post Office. It is safe, Chair, to say we are in the process of concluding the regulatory framework for the first state-owned bank in the Democratic dispensation. Kuyasheshwa la. Honorable members, the corporatization model of the Post Bank will ensure that we progress to a state bank which will fulfill both economic and social transformation mandates, serve the unbanked and underbanked, offering accessible, simple, and affordable banking solutions to our people. So, Honorable Mukwena, we have a roadmap. Siyakhawuleza manje. The postal market is undergoing critical changes impacted by the rapid pace of technological advancement. Throughout the world, the traditional mail volumes are in severe decline, which necessitate a complete rethink of the role of the post office. In South Africa, the integrated white paper on ICT policy already recognizes the strategic role of the post office in the changed market and ever-changing technological environment. In this regard, the post office will launch an e-commerce platform which is being implemented jointly with the Universal Postal Union, a UN agency for postal services. Last year, we committed to partner with UPU to make SAPO one of the 3 hubs in Africa. I'm pleased, Chair, to report the increased cooperation with regional operators to enable trade and logistics solutions in the region and internationally. In addition to e-commerce, the department will work with the post office to redefine its mandate in the rollout of e-government as set out in the white paper. The diversification of the mandate of the post office follows on government's financial investment in the post office over the last 3 years. This will also enable the post office to digitize its network by connecting all post offices to high-speed internet. As we continue to focus on the digitization of the postal network, SAPO will continue to roll out addresses to assist government to comply with what is called the Tlokwe ruling of the Constitutional Court. In the past 2 years, the department has supported the post office with funds to roll out addresses, and about 4.9 million new addresses have been introduced, far exceeding the original target of 3.5 million. This assisted the IEC greatly in preparations for the 2021 local government elections, SIREDI as the ANC for local government. The rollout of these new addresses will enable the recipient communities and households to participate in the economy, and over and above that, it gives our people a sense of belonging. To sustain the postal network, government has reinstated the Universal Service Obligations Fund and dedicated 1.5 billion over a 3-year period. And this is important considering the huge cost of sustaining a postal network. Chair, due to the successful implementation of this project, over 50 million rand funding from the DTPS and an additional 35 million grant was approved to support the development of the National Address Database envisaged in the National ICT Policy. And the focus for the coming year to obtain approval on an amendment to our legislation that approves the data custodianship for the addresses. Honorable members, the socio-economic conditions that are faced by women, youth, and people with disabilities remain at the center of our program and policy framework, rightfully so. In the 2018-19 budget vote speech, the department committed to host and implement programs targeting women, children, people with disabilities, and our SMEs. We hosted the National ICT Accessibility Symposium in Mafikeng, where over 225 persons with disabilities were in attendance, where the outcome of the symposium was a heightened awareness amongst the attendees of what is available to them in the ICT sector. And I'm glad Mayor Masingita Masungu is also in our midst, and she will be carrying our message through. It also provided an opportunity for the sector to showcase what innovations and technologies are available in South Africa to support persons with disabilities. We are passionate about the use of innovation and technologies that support and empower persons with disabilities. As with anything, there is a negative side to the technology. As such, the protection of children is a key priority to the department. We hosted the Child Online Protection Program, providing support to the Web Ranger program, which is a national digital literacy initiative to equip young people between the ages of 12 and 17 to empower themselves and their peers to be safe online. The program reached just under 1,500 young people across the country, equipping them to be web rangers in their respective schools with the idea to catalyze the awareness and behaviors of safe online activity. The school social media policy, which previously only focused on the restriction of cell phone usage in schools, now has been expanded with a priority on policy changes to include aspects of cyberbullying, sexting, and sexual grooming. The department has implemented the e-parenting program across all 9 provinces with just under 500 parents to date. And we're calling on all political parties to also join hands with government in some of these programs, because it is important for our parents to understand all these things. The department will be implementing the Digital Inclusion Awareness Program in 2019-2020 on the benefits of the 4th Industrial Revolution for 4 components of our society, namely women, youth, children, and people with disability. And this will include young women in ICT dialogue in August 2019 with a focus on the benefits of the 4IR. You are all invited on my left. Honorable Chair, South Africa is currently a member of various international organizations such as the International Telecommunications Union, World Intellectual Property Organization, as well as regional and continental formations. Dealing with the sector, our strategic focus is mainly around the creation of a fair and equitable global communications environment, harnessing the value of strategic resources such as radio frequency spectrum, as Minister has spoken to, and universal standards. And as I conclude, Chair, all this initiative constitutes elements of a dream of the South Africa we want, and the actions we are going to take to make those dreams a reality. I started out my speech today by quoting Nelson Mandela, and I want to close with a famous Madiba quote in this lesson, in this Mandela month. And I quote, "A winner is a dreamer who never gives up." Malibongwe. Siyathoba.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. The next speaker is Honorable Nkwankwa.
Thank you very much, House Chair Nikubango Reverse, okanye traffic circle. South Africa has already missed the ITU committed deadline for migration, Minister, as you're aware. The question is, how do you intend to fast-track this process? Another very critical issue to us is that South Africa has fallen behind the rest of the world regarding the assignment of 5G spectrum, as the ministry has decided to assign 4G spectrum before it assigns 5G spectrum. The question we want to ask you, Minister, which I think is pertinent, should the minister not consider simultaneous assignment of both 4G and 5G spectrum? Another very critical question to answer, Minister, for you is foreign-owned OMEs such as Huawei, Ericsson, ZTE, Nokia are increasing their value chain participation by providing full turnkey services. This results to the exclusion and marginalization of black SMMEs. What processes has the department put in place to monitor and ensure that big telecoms players such as MTN, Vodacom, and Telecom remain accountable, especially towards meeting their BEE participation in the industry value? Another important question for you, or an issue to consider, Minister. Phase 1 of SA Connect promised to provide broadband services to over 6,000 government facilities, especially rural schools and clinics. What is the status of this project? And by when should we expect its completion? I now want to come to the SABC and to say in particular that Minister we Finance, we are drama. I want to quote, for example, the report of the Committee on Communications. It says, the report of the committee commends the SABC board and management for, and I quote, savings of 1 billion on the basis of a strategy implemented by the board to 1, increase revenue, 2, contain costs, 3, resolve internal inefficiencies. The same report says it commends the SABC for a balanced coverage of the elections, which has already been cited here, and then it goes further and says, for the improvement in TV license collection fees. That's a turnaround strategy, isn't it? It gives an indication that the institution is turning around. And that's exactly what we discussed last year. So we need to turnaround strategies. These are also, the other issue here, I think, which is also of critical importance, is that you see this political tug of war between what appears to be a political tug of war between the Department of Government and SABC is creating uncertainty for staff members by SABC. All of the issues we've highlighted here, I've quoted from the report of the Committee of Parliament, are issues that we sat and discussed in the portfolio committee last year. And the management and the board committed to doing these issues. They have done them.
Honorable member, your time is up. The next speaker on the list is Honorable L.E. Molala.
Honorable Chairperson, fellow committee members, Minister and Deputy Minister, boards, executives, staff from related state-owned corporations and entities, the media and honorable guests. Following the Department of Communications and Telecommunications, the Postal Service 2019 Annual Performance Plan presented on the 3rd of July 2019, our consideration of the budget and the committee reports on the 9th of July 2019, I'm convinced and agree and rise to support this progressive budget. The debate comes in the immediate aftermath of President's State of the Nation address on the 6th Parliament, the first South African Digital Economic Summit held last week in Johannesburg. In many ways, this is a sector of many firsts, and new departments will be pioneered. We have a great fortune of being pathfinders for our nation in these uncharted waters. The President has made commitment that government will open the doors of learning for all, and this is a skills revolution. The President also made a commitment that will lower the cost of communications. Young people call it data must fall. Extend free Wi-Fi access to more sites in the country, particularly in the most vulnerable areas. As a cadre from a rural province of Northwest, I've been grappling with this complex in the past few weeks since the ANC deployed me into this committee. Clearly, the future we have always dreamed about is here. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, we are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy and complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. Our people are not interested in the drama which some political parties have brought to Parliament. The critics of the fourth industrial revolution will be asking this question: what will be the future of work in the current revolution? How will work be defined? Their prediction is that 5 million jobs will be lost next year to technology in construction, manufacturing, public health, and many other sectors. But for us as the ANC, this is not the main question. The main question is, what would be the new forms of education and training that our people need? Because the world is now opening up learning. How do we take advantage of this phenomenon? The principle regarding automation is as simple as a repetitive task. A machine can do better, in their view, cheaper, without having to take a vacation leave or a sick leave. Our task as the ANC government is to interface this human nature and technology collaboration. What we need in this interface is to first identify things that the machine cannot do. For instance, a machine cannot produce itself. Therefore, we need human creativity. A machine cannot regularly service itself, maintain, and operate itself. Therefore, more technicians are needed. I'm just giving you these few examples. This shows that the fourth industrial revolution has more opportunity for human participation. This path cannot lead us to digital apartheid, a society where there is massive disparities between those who have access and those who are excluded. For the ANC, this digital revolution must be characterized by inclusive and shared growth and development. Our values and principles are striving for social and economic justice, as must remain our guiding light. The budget has responded to this clarion call, growing South Africa together, including the opposition. Honorable member, as the ANC, we are convinced that the ministry has focused on 7 priorities as announced by the president. May I remind you that those are specific to our portfolio: economic transformation and job creation, education, skills and health, social cohesion, safe communities, building a capable and ethical and developmental state, a better Africa and a better world. Focusing on the above, indeed, will go a long way in transforming South African society and building a better life for all South Africans. Honorable Chairperson, we are comforted by the fact that you have correctly translated the ANC manifesto into an electoral mandate and programs into actions and concrete 5-year program for implementation. Above all, we are encouraged and totally agree with you when you say broadband mobile data price will fall. As you finalize the policy directives on the allocation and licensing process of high-demand spectrum, we'd like to ask and call all the mobile and fixed operations to do good on their promises that they will drastically reduce the price and ensure that the rural and semi-urban signal coverage and nature of service is addressed. Minister and Deputy Minister, we would like your department to continuously brief and update Parliament, as you are going to play a collaborative role in finalization of social compacts for digital economy and creative sector, ICT implementation plan for the rollout of 100 digital hubs over 3 years, and finalization and implementation plan to address outcomes of competition market inquiry into data prices and engage stakeholders on the possible agreement on data prices. The African Union has acknowledged the creative and cultural industry in Africa has great promise in the development of the continent, as they contribute to the economy, social and cultural development of our people. The above requires coordination to succeed. We agree that more value is created when private and public sector collaborate. Having recognized the value of high-tech sectors and creative industry in meeting some of the many challenges we face as the fourth industrial revolution unfolds, we therefore request your support and collaboration with the upstarts within the esports and gaming space. This will go a way in creating sustainable jobs for youth and unemployed people, particularly people living with disability. Collaboration with Highway in the establishment of target innovative young entrepreneur programs within the esports and e-gaming will go a long way in building a culture of youth entrepreneurship and job creation. We are confident that your collaboration with provincial governments, as you have done in the Free State provincial government and about to do in the Northwest, where I come from, especially local and district government level, is a good step towards creation of youth digital industrial hubs. This is a practical and meaningful response to President's call. Honorable members, this is a good budget, plans, programs relevant and fit for the fourth industrial revolution. Therefore, the ANC support this vote.
The next speaker is the Honorable Sbc.
Honorable House Chair, Honorable Minister, Deputy Ministers, and honorable members, I greet you all. The NFP welcomes and supports the budget vote for telecommunications and postal services tabled here today. The department is under major pressure with the fast evolving technologically advances. Digital advancement continues to reshape our world in ways that encourage people to form new habits, find new ways to work together through effective and timeous communication methods. The NFP believes that if the department remains committed in these key mandates to meeting strategic goals and objectives, we can keep up with the fast-growing digital world. Effective and efficient strategic leadership, governance and administration. A responsive communication policy, regulatory environment, and improved country branding and transformed communication sector. We note and welcome the 64.9 million allocated for administration, the 16.4 million allocated for communication policy, and 47.4 million allocated for management of enterprise development, broadcasting, digital migration, industry research and analysis. The access to information and content is indeed easy, and with this luxury, the need for regulatory policies are needed to protect our children. We are unable to thoroughly monitor the information and content consumed by minors, but it is our duty to implement policies that can protect them as best as we can. The suggested course on digital media in partnership with the private sector and NGOs will educate communities as to how they can create and make use of opportunities through digital media. We note that most South Africans do not benefit from the ICT infrastructure, but we must focus on improving the promotion, growth and sustainability of SMEs through facilitating the implementation of the ICT SMME development strategy. We thank you.
Honorable Madisha.
Thank you, Chairperson, and all members here present. Permit me to start at the end. Just two last paragraphs, and indicate that COPE calls on Parliament to instruct government to urgently address problems faced by that Schedule 2 public entity of the PFMA, namely the SABC. It is in crisis, we must emphasize. South Africans, particularly the working class and the poor, cannot survive without SABC. We call on government to give SABC a bailout of not less than 3.2 billion that they have requested. For SABC to survive, it needs quality and content. For this to be attained, there must be staff. Some amongst us have and continue to campaign for the staff reduction. That campaign is wrong, as it both ignores labor relations, that is Section 189, as well as skills development, including the quality and content that is required. Furthermore, problems of buildings. Those of us who have gone to SABC, not only where their head office is in Johannesburg, but all over the country, we have seen the buildings that are collapsing. And that has got to be addressed. I must emphasize that some of us have seen one worker who is in the ICU over the past 2 months because she got into problems as a result of these collapses of the buildings, etc. Now that's a major problem. Now there are other very serious problems there. They cannot even pay for the electricity, the toilets are blocked and all that. We need to do something. But then I must say to the minister, through you, Chairperson, that there needs to be a correction, because when she gave the committee the report, she painted a picture that she and the Minister of Finance were agreeing insofar as they are a route to deal with the SABC problems was concerned. But then that which has gone out through the public media, and I believe, I want to hope that...
Remember, your time is now expired. The next speaker is the Honorable Hendricks.
Honorable Chairman, 4IR creates a sense of excitement, and the Honorable Minister, you have captured the nation's imagination. But we must also have on the radar cyber cities in deep rural areas to get corporates to relocate in their droves to make money there. All this in preparation of the cyber civilization, with South Africa a member of the civilization. If you achieve this, Honorable Minister, you will be part of royalty and the envy of the official opposition. Honorable Minister, the nation is waiting for the finalization of policy directives on the spectrum so the country can catch up on progress like we see in developed countries. The President in Isona identified the need to strengthen the capacity of the state. ICASA strengthens this capacity, can strengthen this capacity. ICASA strengthens the capacity of the private sector by giving them spectrum space. More of this space must be given to state departments like Home Affairs and the police. The 5G spectrum streams must be allocated to them to capacitate them and save them money rather than paying exorbitant future prices. Having said that, we want to acknowledge that ICASA continues to be an independent and credible regulator. Wireless broadband service like 5G must be free, and ICASA must be creative to make this possible. Uptake of 5G systems must be speeded up and monopolies must be avoided. The interim relief for the SABC is welcome. We must support the public broadcaster now that it is free and no longer captured. The digital economy in South Africa is in young hands, which gives us hope, and Al-Jamaa, with a sense of excitement, wishes you, Honourable Minister, all the success.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, House Chair. It's delightful to stand in a single chamber today that is as it should be, where all the old split-up departments of communications and telecommunications and postal services are here under one roof debating as one. Even President Ramaphosa didn't wait for any sunrise, any new dawn or old, before quickly joining the two departments back together again, if only in name and under a single minister in the Fifth Parliament, and the same minister we wish him success in the term ahead. I'm also delighted to see the committee's positive recommendation of this departmental unification, albeit after the fact. Is there anyone in this House who thought splitting the two departments in the first place was a good idea? You can put up your hands. Anyone? No, not one? There we go. Because what a monumental waste of effort, money and time that was. Fruitless and wasteful indeed. South Africa's telecommunications environment is arguably the most liberalized sector in the country. Yet this sector, which should be the freest, isn't free. It should be creating thousands more jobs, upskilling more youngsters, growing technical careers, developing small businesses, and contributing massively to the coffers of the state. Instead, it finds itself completely constrained. It's constrained by a lack of spectrum. You can't see it, touch it, or feel it, but spectrum is all around us. It is infinite, it is indescribably valuable, billions upon billions of rands worth. Now, there are companies that want to pay for and use the spectrum for mobile network development and rollout. Government is the custodian of the spectrum on behalf of the people of South Africa and are supposed to use the spectrum for the benefit of the people of South Africa. Yet you have dragged your heels for more than 5 years in releasing the spectrum for term sale or for lease. Effectively, government imprisoned spectrum for purely political ends, and I'm sure that makes spectrum a political prisoner. In fact, so determined was this government to keep this prisoner locked up that it took ICASA to court to ensure that it stayed that way. Minister, if you're holding a sector to ransom by delaying the release of high-demand spectrum, be fair and tell them what the ransom is. At least then they consider buying their freedom. Let ICASA hold an auction now. Pitch it high and use the revenue raised for other government priorities. But you can't continue to do nothing. It's like owning a house that you can rent out to generate revenue, but then you don't, and you leave billions uncollected year after year that could have been spent on health, education, housing for those who desperately need it. Just don't spend it on the SABC. And let's be honest, you only have to look at who's sniffing around the formation of the WOAN to know much of the delay in allocating spectrum lay in connecting a few rent seekers to spectrum through the WOAN. Yes, rent seekers, we see you. And that delay is very expensive indeed. If that spectrum had been allocated to Telkom, where government has a share, Vodacom, where government has a warehouse share, or any other South African taxpaying company with the capital to deploy networks, Treasury and Global's rating agencies would be a lot happier with our nation's finances because those billions in revenue and taxes would have flowed into our coffers in the last 5 years. And we could sure use the extra money to keep the lights on, Minister, because if there's no power, then there's no point to ICT, is there? For South Africa's sake, Minister, take note of the committee's recommendation and release the spectrum without delay. It is a national infinite resource. Set it free. And don't bog the spectrum auction down with onerous conditions. Make it simple and clear. The benefits of allocating spectrum quickly far outweigh the disadvantages of backbreaking auction conditions, because this will merely hold us back even more. We don't have the luxury of time to waste. Let ICASA make the spectrum available now, and to those companies with the massive capital outlay needed to immediately deploy the high-quality, reliable, and ubiquitous networks, including 5G, that we need to take full advantage of, and yes, the fourth industrial revolution. Because if we don't have the networks, we don't have the revolution. As W.E.B. Du Bois wrote, admittedly of his American South, but it might as well be us, and I quote, "Here is the magnificent climate. Here is the fruitful earth under the beauty of the southern sun. And here, if anywhere on earth, is the need for the thinker, the worker, and the dreamer." After Sona, there's no doubt who the dreamer is. With bullet trains and connected cities, that's government led by the president. For innovative thinkers and actual workers, though, you need look no further than the Western Cape, where this DA government has done more to connect its public infrastructure and roll out universal access than any other province in the country. But it's the rest of the country that I worry about. Is the president's bullet train just a bullet? Is the new dawn simply the train's light at the end of the tunnel? Because an example from CETA's annual performance plan might hold an answer. One of their strategic objectives is, and I quote, 100% of South Africa Connect sites connected at bandwidths of 10 megabits per second as per government order. So yes, the minister can stand at this podium and talk confidently about 300 new sites that will be connected to the internet. Of course, the devil's in the details. What she didn't say was that government's highest standard for our people is that 10 megabits per second. And while she's connecting at 10 megabits per second, Vodacom is set to roll out 5G networks at speeds of up to 20 gigabytes. 10 megabytes and 20 gigabytes. I've seen what the private sector can do. I hold it in my hands. I use its networks. Africa's first live 5G session on a commercially ready 5G mobile phone and network was displayed at this year's Elite Durban July. Perhaps Honorable Malema experienced it during his fun-filled day at the races. His outfit was better than your Sona One, Minister. So do you reward excellence? Do you say go and do more? And here's the spectrum to make it cheaper for you to roll out and deploy more networks. No, you don't. Because while government dithers, the private sector delivers. And it is them we have to thank for the state-of-the-art networks we have in this country. Nothing the government did can take credit for it. South Africa is nowhere near for the digital age. Because in these prison guard uniforms, you're holding the future captive. You're still talking the fourth industrial revolution. You're still holding commissions. And you're still conducting more talk shops. And you're still imprisoning spectrum while the entire world is quickly moving ahead. Even Lesotho has a 5G network. And on the subject of 5G, please ask President Dreamy to stop talking patent nonsense about 5G and Huawei. Holograms notwithstanding, Minister, tell him Huawei is not the only supplier of 5G technology or networks. Nokia is a world leader in 5G, and the USA is a leading supplier of 5G networks. When the hologram knows more than the original, Houston, we have a problem. And it takes more than sloganeering and pretty gold-braided uniforms to start a revolution, Minister. If that was all it took, there are more than enough Gucci revolutionaries with pseudo-military titles already sitting around us to start a small war. And Honourable Wessels gave us some great advice on telecommunications, although I'm not sure where he got his insight. I've never ever seen the Freedom Front in the committee, ever. Not even in the last term. That said, I do like the idea of freedom, if not front. Frankly, Minister, it's time to stop talking and release the spectrum to mobile operators that can use it. Get the sector moving again, because if we get left behind, you'll never catch up. And at 10 megabits per second, we're going backwards. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is the Honourable Kubeka. Order, honourable members.
The Honourable House Chairperson, fellow committee members and MPs, Minister, Deputy Minister, and officials of the two departments, boards, executives, and staff from related state-owned corporations and entities, guests and members of the public. The ANC government is offering a vision and far-sighted leadership through these budget votes. It is a budget that deals with the reality of our country and the challenges we are facing on the one hand, while laying the foundation to position South Africa to be among the early takers in the digital revolution. This is the kind of the leadership of the ANC incapable of providing. As we become commemorating the birth of our icon, Utata Obaba Nelson Mandela, a week from now, we recall the words he spoke at the ITU Telcom World in Geneva in 2009. Open quote, communication technologies have transformed the way people live and the manner in which countries develop. They have the potential to enable us to solve many of the critical problems confronting us. If this potential is to be realized, then we must find ways of turning these technologies into a resource for all people despite the challenges they face within our communities, close quote. Honorable Chairperson, if we reflect on the history of industrial revolutions, We know that the first industrial revolution brought us the steam engine, and our colonial masters imported trains and other technologies from England. The second industrial revolution brought to the world the internal combustion engine and the motor car. More than 100 years later, as Africans, we have not invented our own car. The third industrial revolution was the age of the personal computer and the internet, both invented in the United States of America. President Ramaphosa and the African leaders have committed that this time around, we will not be late takers to digital technologies. We will be producers. As producers of technology, we will be able to own our intellectual property. That is why we are encouraged that this budget focuses on supporting the creation of digital innovation hubs. China has shown us that a developing country can lead the way in the new technologies, much to displeasure of developed countries. The onslaught in the West against Chinese tech giants, Huawei and ZTE, is a sign that the Western colonial mentality remains alive and well. While the United States has been mired in wars in at least 7 different countries, China has been quietly and peacefully developing its industries. South Africa and Africa must seize the opportunity of leapfrog the West in the digital technologies if we are to emerge out of the trap of being sellers of the raw materials and buyers of finished products. But there are the likes of the DA who would like to hold the development of African banks. If you ask ordinary South African a question, what is Ms. Phumzile van Dam focused for? They would probably tell you 3 things. First, she shares a surname with a famous action movie star. Second, she assaulted the racist DA voter at the V&A waterfront.
Point of order.
As she was shocked.
Point of order.
Honourable member, will you just take your seat, please? Why are you rising on member?
House Chairperson, the honourable member is aware that if she wants to bring improper conduct or allegations thereof about a member of this House, it must be by way of a substantive motion. That is out of order and she must withdraw.
No. Continue, honourable member.
Secondly, she assaulted a racist DA voter.
Honourable member, now you are moving into the terrain of Rule 85. And that rule says if you want to bring that type of attention to the House, for the House to look at, you must do so in terms of Rule 85, subsection 1 and 2. I thus request you to withdraw that remark and continue with the rest of your speech, please.
Point of order, Chair.
Point of order, Chair.
I'm dealing with, thank you.
Thirdly, Ms. Van Dam apparently fantasized about being Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. She has been trying her best to project herself to the media and her Twitter followers as a hero. She is desperately trying to imitate her famous movie star cousin by attacking the minister. Unfortunately, Honorable Van Dam, for now you will remain just a shadow of our beautiful young minister. Like a shadow, you will be ignored and forgotten. Honorable Chair, let me take this opportunity to affirm the position of our portfolio committee. Having considered the APPs and the reports of the department of its entities, including the SABC, Board and National Treasury, SABC, our portfolio committee was unanimous in asking the minister, the SABC Board and National Treasury to engage and resolve the financial challenges faced by our public broadcaster. We have not appointed Ms. Van Dam as our spokesperson on the SABC matter. We have a chairperson who speaks on behalf of the committee.
Order, Chair.
We want to assure...
Honorable Kubeka, will you just take your seat? Why are you rising, Honourable Member?
This minister, this person here is misrepresenting my role. I am not here on the ANC's ticket.
No,
I am here
Honourable Member, that's
representing
not
the
a point of
Democratic
order.
Alliance.
Please take your
She
seat.
must be clear. I don't
Please take your seat. It's not a point of order. Continue, Honourable Member.
We want to assure and the board and the staff members at the SABC that our parliamentary portfolio committee cares for them and the institution they serve. We believe that the minister of the government of the ANC will never reckless decisions with respect to the SABC or any other entity of the state. We fully understand the strategic role played by the SABC in our democracy, and we will never allow it to fall into a state to disrepair. We would like to see jobs served as the SABC, and we will saved at the SABC, and also commend the good work the board has done. The management and board, we must have confidence in the real government of South Africa, not a shadow, because a shadow is not enduring. A shadow is not reliable. The South African post offices is a great example of the determination within the ANC government to do everything in our power, preserves the irreplaceable entities such as the SABC in the hands of the state. We know that our colleagues from the EFF are still caught in 1950s slogan of the PAC of Azania. I quote, "Land first or else shall follow," close quote. Well, as the ANC, we have always argued with the PAC that ownership of land alone does not drive the economy. Their argument is that even trade and commerce happens on land, and in their logic, the one who owns the land owns the economy. Maybe we need to take this opportunity to stretch the brains of our EFF brothers and sisters a little bit. I want to ask the fighters to think about all the wealth that has been created in the world in the past
Honourable Member, will you
decades.
take your seat, please? There's a point. Why are you rising, Honourable Member?
I'm just checking, why is this member speaking about land? We spoke about telecommunications.
No, that's not a point of
What
order.
is the
Honourable
land
Member.
all about?
No, Honourable Member, that's not a point of order. Continue, Honourable Kubeka.
No, it's not a point of order, it's a question.
No.
Uzoyibamba phambili siyaqhubha ngokuhlanganisa. How much of it has been created by farmers or landowners, and how much has been created by bankers, innovators, and owners of intellectual properties? Fighters, we want to assure you that as the ANC, we are fighting for land and agrarian transformation, but we also want all South Africans to participate in the high-value economic activities, manufacturing, finance and insurance, innovation, and digital technologies. But unlike the neoliberal DA, we believe that the state has a major role to play in development of the industries of the future. Government creates an enabling environment for the provision of communication services to all Africans in an inclusive manner that promotes socio-economic development and invests. For us, inclusion means programs to ensure that millions of young people are absorbed into sectors where demand for jobs is growing. These sectors include global business processing services, agricultural value chains, technical installation, repair and maintenance, and new opportunities provided through the digital economy and the fourth industrial revolution. As announced by the President In the SONA, we are looking forward to the minister issuing the policy directive to ICASA to commence the spectrum licensing process. This process must include measures to promote competition, transformation, inclusive growth of the sector, and universal access as part of bringing down the cost of data, which is essential both economic development and for unleashing opportunities for young people. We believe that people of South Africa trust the ANC government to manage the funds based on the department's track record of governance and accountability. The Department of Communication and GIS both received clean audits in previous financial years. Honorable Member, this department iyakhawuleza ngempela. The department's APPs have injected a sense of agency in the programs of the fourth industrial revolution environment. The electoral mandate and manifesto programs are all within the apex priorities identified and translated into the medium-term strategic framework of the department. Minister, your programs are responding to the ANC call on all South Africans rededicated themselves to task of ensuring that government must empower all South Africans, unemployed persons, youth and women, and enhance their capacity to unleash their economic and social potential. Last but not least, Minister, I would like to continue marching on, regardless of the distractions that emerging as you continue with the review of policies and legislation for the fourth industrial revolution purposes. Do not be discouraged by attention seekers, particularly the DA. Honorable Minister, there are many men and few women and youth on boards of your entities. We encourage you to transform the boards and to focus on gender and youth balance. We support your approach on shareholder oversight in line with the requirements of the PFMA. We respect the independence of entities in terms of the constitution and legislation, but we also expect financial accountability for the use of public funds. That is why the ANC, we call on you, Ministry, boards and of entities that are struggling to engage with the National Treasury to find a lasting solution. As the ANC, we are fully supported this budget vote that we are talking about today. Manje masitsho njalo ke bese ngithi ke kuwe ke babufana lalela ke ngoba sewajwayela lapha ku generation uma uthomentana noKarabo. With due respect, honorable member, acting is a drama on SABC does not make you an expert of SABC.
Honorable member, your time has expired. Order, honorable members. I now call upon the Honorable Minister of Communications.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Firstly, manditsho apha emhlabeni wamampondo. Kuloka faku njengenkosazana yamampondo. Ndithi, Honorable Mackenzie, you missed it. I did talk to the issue of the spectrum and the policy direction that will be allocated. It's important when we hear, as honorable members, that we listen carefully, not just to listen to respond, because I said in 7 days, we will issue the policy directive in line with what President has said. The second thing, Honorable, no, you don't get into the details. You must understand the responsibility of the policy maker. I can't determine what method the regulator must use. Read the act that you produce, Honorable Member. The second matter that you spoke on, Honorable Mackenzie, again, in line with the speed that you are providing in relation to the broadband services that you are providing, I did, and I want to specifically quote on this one. You must listen when Impondo Kazi speak. Ma Impondo liteta, mamela mhlonishwa. Ndithe, during the medium term, we will review the download speeds to be in line with international best practice. This will form part of the work we are currently doing with the DBSA, which will be concluded by the end of the financial review of the speeds to meet international standards from 10 megabytes to 100, Honorable Mackenzie. There's nothing I can do when you just decide to be like that. Honorable members, present today are young e-gamers and e-sport enthusiasts from TA or TEM gaming. This is one of the fastest growing sectors enabled by the fourth industrial revolution that presents an opportunity for young township entrepreneurs to enter into this multi-billion industry that refuses to transform. Sifikile manje. Huawei has partnered with these young entrepreneurs to ensure that young people in townships and rural communities are exposed to and capacitated to compete in esports. The department is also working with CEDA to assist TEM gaming to offer training in township and rural areas. Now, listen carefully as we talk about growing the economy and, of course, building on SMMEs. 100 SMMEs and individuals will be trained on fiber and Wi-Fi deployment skills in partnership with the Wireless Access Providers Association, so that every time we put $1 billion in infrastructure, our people get to benefit. 180 SMMEs will be capacitated on cell phone repairs and other key business management skills. Singazofika la City 5 there whilst our people continue to consume. We've got to give them skills if you can't produce for now the devices that must be used. The program will be implemented in partnership with the Technology Innovation Agency, NEMISA, and CEDA. Our entities, and all of them under the portfolio of communications and digital technologies, will spend 40% of their budget in terms of procurement services in youth-owned SMMEs. That's a non-negotiable. Of course, having said all of that, honorable members, let me thank the portfolio committee members for their ongoing support and robust engagements. Let me thank my beautiful sister, the Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. Thank the department as led by the 2 DGs for continuously making sure that they compromise and sacrifice their life with their partners and children, making sure that the people of this country get the best they can get. Let me thank again the people of South Africa who continue to pray for this country and pay their TV licenses without fail. We need it. If you love SABC, it starts there. Pay your TV license. And of course, I've got to thank my dear husband, who continues to support me through all times, even though he gets to be alone most of the time. Allow me to conclude by making a clarion call under the theme of Kauleza, which must define our work now and in future. As Mama Winnie Mandela said, and I quote, "Singayisusa sithanda." I close quote. The youth of our country cannot wait anymore. The good thing about belonging to a governing party is that you can't be removed by opposition. Of course, in dreamland, they can continue as shadows, continue to wish that they can remove you. The youth of our country cannot wait anymore. We must never test their patience. Let's all khawuleza to build the South Africa we want. Ukwenje nje okumalungu ahloniphekileyo iyabulela inkosazana yamaMpondo enguthandiwe wamaZulu. Ndiyabulela mhlali ngaphambili.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that concludes the debate on this budget vote. You are reminded that immediately hereafter, after the bells have been rung for 10 minutes, the debate on the Public Works budget vote will take place. That concludes this debate, and the mini plenary will now rise.